Well, sheep is something that we definitely feel from a practical standpoint is an excellent sort of small scale or homestead animal. However, despite their practical qualities, before you get sheep, there are a few things to think about and consider because it's not all sunshines and roses. Now, they are significantly subdued from what they were just a little while ago. But one negative or one thing to consider with sheep is, unlike goats and cows, they're really loud when they want to be. When they want something, they let you know. And what they want right now, fresh pasture. Now, a big thing with sheep is you are going to have to practice pasture rotation, or you will likely, at least if you live in a moist or humid environment, which is perfect for the dreaded barberpole worm, you're going to have to practice pasture rotation. And that's another challenge in of itself, because sheep do require a fair bit of area. So they really didn't do it justice on the noise volume level, but we've appeased them slightly with a little bit of hay. Right now we are in the process of sort of temporarily fencing an area because, well, we don't have all of our permanent fences up. And that's a big consideration. If you have all your permanent fencing up, sheep are pretty easy because it's as simple as just opening gates. But if you're using temporary fence, or if you're in the process of setting up your fencing or deciding how you want to set up your fencing, it can be a bit of a challenge. We have a video from last year where we talked a little bit about the love-hate relationship with electric net fencing. And right now we are back using it again. Now, a real big key here, we have been a little bit late or behind in getting this set up. So because we're trying to go for the 5-day rotation, what we really should have done is a couple days before that rotation ended, we should have had our temporary fencing set up, because then it would have been as simple as opening a gate and moving them from point A to point B. But in true homesteading fashion, we are a little bit behind, so hence the volume. And I don't think I can underestimate it or understate it with sheep. They will let you know when they are not happy about something, or when they want something. They are very, very good at that. So right now, everybody's helping with the fencing job. As you can see, Stephanie over here. We've taken an area, as I'm going to pan around. There's a lot of food here. So despite some of the negatives of sheep and their need for a lot of food, they will eat a large portion of what's out here. Now, with the Icelandic sheep in particular, they'll eat pretty much all of this, including a lot of the weeds that are down in here. That's another thing that's kind of a plus and a negative of the Icelandic sheep. When they get to a point that they've eaten it down fairly close, they tend to stop. This is definitely a positive and a negative with the Icelandic sheep. They will stop when they eat it down pretty close to the ground. And essentially what that is like a parasite avoidance. And that's when you know that they need to go to a new pasture, when they've eaten it down to that point. Because even if there is some standing stuff, they've eaten what they want. And that's the challenge with pasture rotation, because as you saw from the pan around here, there's tons of food here. They will eat a large variety of the food items that are out here, but they won't eat it all. And then, at the end of the 5 or 6 days, they're going to have to be moved again. So it's something to think about. Because when you read a lot of things about stocking densities of sheep, it'll talk about 5 or 6 ewes per acre plus their lambs. Well, that's all fine and dandy, but likely you are going to require either an area to put the sheep so that they are off pasture, i.e. a barn or something like that, and bring food to them for periods of time, or you're going to have more pasture to rotate it. So we've never found the magic number, but we suspect it's closer to sort of 3 times that if you were really doing sort of sustainable pasture rotation and parasite avoidance. So as I walk down along the outside edge of our temporary electric netting, one thing you will notice is I've had to come back through here and weed whack an area, because One of the downsides to this is when you have a lot of forage like this, you still need a pathway for the fence or it'll ground out and not work. And another negative to sheep compared to some other animals is they will constantly test the fence. So you definitely want your fence in good working order. Certainly a plus, however, is, as you can see way down there, you can weave this material through a lot of obstacles, which does allow you a lot of flexibility for getting them grazing on areas that you don't have a permanent fence. But of course, all of this takes time. And time is usually at a premium when you're homesteading. But if you're, really this applies to anything that you're grazing. If you're grazing animals and you're doing pasture rotation, you're going to have to allocate that time. As I said, in an ideal world where everything just works perfectly, what we would have done is sort of had this set up before the sheep had to move. The reality of it is we have to deal with loud sheep because we weren't quite as prepared as we'd necessarily like to be. Alright, so it's time to let these ungrateful animals out. We didn't film it, but at the very end they got really loud and they're going to come out, forget all about that and stuff their faces here.
Ready?
There we go.
And a bunch of dumb babies that can't figure it out.
Yep. Can't figure out where the gate is. So, even though this looks like a lot of food, they will make short work of this. So we're very serious and honest when we say 5 to 6 days, and they will have to come out of here. So even though this video seems maybe a little bit negative or what have you about the sheep, I won't lie. The one part of the farm or homestead that really just makes my blood boil is when the sheep get like what they are today, where, I'm going to say it, you only saw them in the pen, but they've had an exceptionally good situation, and they get to that point where they are done and they want new grass, and if you don't give it to them, life is miserable. So any large grazing animal, this is something to think about, because as I mentioned stocking densities before, what you read doesn't always translate into what you are going to need for your own homestead. So just something to think about, and temporary always requires more work. Yes, it's less work to set up the fence, but when you have to do this every 5 or 6 days, you can see where your time goes. There's no good solution for it though, because to put up a permanent fence is going to take you probably, if you're working, a couple weeks.
And a lot of money.
And a lot of money. So all things to think about. Different animals have different fencing requirements. Different animals consume the pasture in different ways. Our experiences with at least Icelandic sheep is they eat a lot. And although they will eat a lot of variety and a lot of weeds, they need really good pasture. And if they don't have good pasture, they are miserable to have during the summer months.
And yet we stick with it.
And yet we stick with it, as Stephanie said. So anyways, just some food for thought. We'll leave you with maybe a bit more footage of them grazing as they do. And yeah, if you're thinking of adding bigger livestock to your farm, this is all food for thought, or thought for what is eventually going to become your food. They pretty much disappear into the grass.